look at what is happening in our solar system. Wow, wow, wow. Check this out. We have comet Tsuchinshan appearing right as a 2.1 X-class flare blasted off the sun, releasing a massive coronal mass ejection. Let's go! And we have Mercury in our coronagraph at the same time. Our inner solar system is going totally bonkers right now. And I think it's important to keep in mind that our solar system is a big place. We are at one astronomical unit with the Earth. And so going out to Neptune, you have 30 AU. Pluto, you go out to 50 AU at times. Eris, dwarf planets go out beyond the edge of the heliosphere. There's a lot of activity happening in the solar system overall. We are right at the front row seats at one astronomical unit. This is all happening in our nearby energy sphere at this time. It's totally crazy. I mean, we have comet Tsuchinshan right as it appears, seemingly triggering this massive X flare that blasted off from the sun, a long duration one too. Check out the velocity on this thing. I mean, just just like explosive. And we can see that with our latest imagery, our 131 Angstrom view. Let's go to that right now. Here we have I'm going to step off so we can see it. Long duration X-class flare, one of the strongest solar flares we've had yet in this solar cycle, because it did hit that X-class territory, but also because it was a super long duration. And let us not forget that right now we are still in a geomagnetic storm. Proton flux is kicking up from this solar flare. And so all the different measures of energy that you can measure are just bumping up dramatically right now. So this is a huge energy climax event that we are in at this moment, October 7th. And this party doesn't look like it's going to stop at any time. So yeah, things are just nuts. They are wild. Again, here we have this 2.1 X-class flare. What's interesting about this is that it blasted off the sun, and then there's a whole bunch of magnetic reconnections that are occurring pretty far off from the surface. Check that out. And so it's not like just close off to the surface. It extended out, and then it was able to push energy our way as a result because it wasn't so close to the limb anymore. And so it does seem that we'll have some sort of very slight flank influence as a result of this sweeping by the Earth. It is going to combine with the co-rotating interaction region, it seems. So there could be some interesting dynamics there. I'll discuss that more. But before we do that, let's go to our X-ray flux specifically. Glad you're all here. We are going to do a question and answer at the end. So if you have any questions, you can type at Stefan Burns. I'll answer them as best I can. Let's keep them, focused on space weather. But hope you're all doing well. I know the energies have been crazy the past few days. Really since beginning of August or October, things have been kind of nuts. We'll go over that. Here is our X-ray flux. And so we can see specifically what is happening in the long duration of it, because it immediately shot up to this 2.1 level, stayed in the X-class range for a few hours, and then just now is starting to go down. It's still not over. This flare is still going on at this moment in time. It is bonkers. We go to our 3-day view, our 7-day view. Here's the better view. Look at this. Look at the size of that flare. Super long duration, still active. It could bump back up again. We don't know. We are live right now, right? And here is that 9.0 X-class flare that we had, the strongest of this solar cycle. But look at the context here. If I move the cursor off, no, this cursor is annoying. You can see just how rapid that spike up was in X-ray flux and then right back down. So this was a very brief, very short duration X-class flare, strong enough to push off a coronal mass ejection that we are now moving through. We are in that geomagnetic storm, G2 geomagnetic storm as a result, a long duration one that is strengthening at this moment. But the amount of energy release of this one is on a whole nother level because of just the area under the curve. And that happened right as the Tsuchinshan comet appeared. Just like this, boom, it got triggered. So, hey, if you don't believe in synchronicity or anything, then it's just a coincidence, but it's a pretty crazy coincidence. Now, here is the geomagnetic storm that we are in at this moment in time. And so I made a video yesterday, a lot of you probably watched that, about how it's starting to come in. It seemed kind of weak at the beginning. It was like, well, this is nothing. but then it's strengthened, but it's gone through these ebbs and flows. But our HB60 index here is a 1 hour measure versus the KP, which is a 3 hour measure of geomagnetic field strength swings as measured on the surface. They aggregate it all, they put it on 1 to 9 scale. We had a 1 hour index there that went up to 7. I can put the cursor right over that so you can see that really nicely. 18 to 1900 UTC. We did have a 1 hour G3 storm there. So I guess the forecast was right, but it's just because this coronal mass ejection impact has been so bizarre in many ways. We can see that with our real-time solar wind. Let's zoom over there. Here's our real-time solar wind. We are actually, in many aspects, entering into the strongest part of this coronal mass ejection right now. So woohoo, I hope you're all having fun. Here is our solar wind before the coronal mass ejection impact. Then it bumped up. We see that there. This is where I made that video. That was the first bucket. But then we had this long duration period of a negative southward component, which is what you need for a strong geomagnetic storm. We're in the Russell-McFerrin effect right now, which makes them stronger. And so we see that around the time of this bucket there is when we started to get our KP index to bump up to the G1 level, you know, reaching values of 5, 5.33. And then we kind of like, I thought the storm was over, or at least finishing off, because look right here, we get to like, you know, a total field strength of 9, -1, starts to go into pository 9 and then 3. So you're like, okay, or like 9, 2, right? It's like, okay, this is fading out, this is over. Well, guess what? All of a sudden it started to bump back up again. We get another bucket, we get some more candles there, right? This is 6.33 for the KP index. Then it goes all the way up. Now we're at like 16 nanotesla for the total field strength, -10 for the southward component. What is this, right? Long duration, you know, magnetized push that we are getting from that 9.0 X-class flare and that coronal mass ejection. And now it's like, okay, I thought it was going to end again. Nope. Now here is our next one. And right now the values are at 16 and -14. So we are very likely to print another G2 KP index as a result of this. There is a 1 hour time delay with this because this is measured by the Discover satellite out at the L1 Lagrange point. So whatever you're reading here comes in on Earth about an hour later. And so we're looking at this right now. In an hour's time, all of a sudden that will be showing G2, perhaps even more. So that is the geomagnetic storm that we are going through right now. We have, again, this is just so beautiful. We have our coronagraph here showing Tsuchinshan appear right as we had that massive coronal mass ejection launched from the sun, still blasting off at this moment in time. There is Mercury. Now, I think we may have a space weather model for this already by NASA. It is kind of uncertain. I'm going to refresh this to make sure that maybe they've updated it. It looks like it's the same one. And so I don't know if this is for this 2.1 X-class flare because the velocity looks too low. That's a very fast coronal mass ejection that blasted off from that western limb. This seems too slow for that, but the actual location and direction of propagation is accurate. And yes, the coronal mass ejection can influence an asteroid or a comet or things of that nature. It depends on the strength, but that can definitely exert a force on that. Just the same way that you have satellites in low Earth orbit, when all of a sudden you get an increase in the particle density and the radiation belts push down into the ionosphere, we can get a whole bunch of satellites that burn up. And so yeah, it's possible. We don't really know too much about that, but yes, it is possible. So this model here was run on the 7th. And so that's today. And so again, I don't know if this is for that X-class flare, but the interesting thing here is that it's the right location. We see that it is going this direction. Earth there is in yellow, and so we don't see it sweeping by directly, but you'll notice that this plasma wave combines with this co-rotating interaction region just like that. And if you read the physics of Parker spirals and these CIRs and all this stuff, there's a lot of research papers that were done back in the 70s and even beyond talking about how co-rotating interaction regions that connect Jupiter and Earth together allow for a flow of energy and particles from Jupiter down those magnetic field lines into Earth. That happens every 13 months, and we get a spike in what's known as Jovian electrons, and that's Jovian flux. And so we know that these co-rotating interaction regions, because they contain magnetic fields, allow for the transport of particles from different parts of the solar system pretty rapidly. Jupiter is all the way out at 5.2 astronomical units typically, right? This is all in the 1 astronomical unit zone right there. I mean, at least Earth's orbit's 1 AU. Well, we have this coronal mass ejection here combining with this co-rotating interaction region, and then that CIR is sweeping by the Earth. That perhaps could allow some of this energy to flow down through that co-rotating interaction region and sweep by the Earth, creating kind of like a pseudo coronal mass ejection impact. And so that is a dynamic that could be playing out. It's at least worth kind of playing with the idea. And so if that does occur, don't be surprised, even though this was from so far on the western limb. Now we have proton flux bumping up like crazy. Let's go there. Here's our proton flux at this moment in time. And it's just starting to charge up. This is our greater than 10 mega electron volt protons. All the others are staying flat. So there does seem to be some level of magnetic connection between sunspot group 3842 and the Earth at this moment in time. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this continues to raise up higher, but it remains to be seen. Has the frequency of the sun increased through all of its activity? Well, the sun emits light across the entire spectrum. And so going from solar minimum to solar maximum, you do have things like X-ray flux, which is a very high vibrational wavelength of light, increased by like an order of magnitude or more, so 10x, 15x, 20x. You have radio flux increased quite dramatically. That's like in the megahertz range. But in terms of like just the sun increasing its frequency, we have to be precise with what frequencies are going up and which ones are going down. But in general, total solar irradiance goes up during solar maximum by about 4 or 5 watts per square meter. During minimum is like 1,360 watts per square meter. During maximum, you can average it, approximate it to about 1,365 watts per square meter. So that's total solar irradiance, but specific wavelengths of light will go up dramatically going from minimum to maximum. That's what we're in right now. That affects our global electric circuit, which alters our weather patterns. And so we just had Hurricane Helene slam into the United States. Make sure you say some prayers for those people. A lot of people have lost everything. I have a customer right now who's contacting me. She lost her home in Florida, and now we have Hurricane Milton strengthening in the Gulf, barreling towards Florida for another like double punch. And so all this geomagnetic activity is, feeding our global electric circuit, all this solar activity just like pushing into it, and that can strengthen things like hurricanes, because a hurricane is one of the most localized sources of electromagnetic potential and charge in our troposphere, and then going even a little higher sometimes. And the global electric circuit is the ionosphere and all the energy and currents there. You have stronger electric currents in the ionosphere going out 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers above the surface, all the way out to like 300, 1,000 kilometers, right? That gets strengthened during geomagnetic storms. And then you have a capacitance set up, right? So if you have a really strong charge here due to a hurricane and a stronger charge in the ionosphere due to a geomagnetic storm, that'll create an ionized channel and feed energy down to it, strengthening it. That's at least what physics would let you, kind of surmise. In terms of observational evidence, that's a different story, but we do see these weather systems strengthening during geomagnetic storms. If you just watch it for a while, that becomes pretty apparent. So we have a lot happening right now. We also have if we look at our most recent SUVI imagery, we see these 2 big coronal holes on the sun. And I'm pointing this out because we have a whole new crop of sunspots rotating in, and we just had this whole sunspot sequence rotate out. And so we had now 3 X-class flares from 3842, finally now getting out of the way. We'll see if it pops back up again with another solar rotation. But I find that when we have sunspots that are really big, right next to significant coronal holes, that usually makes them more unstable, the sunspots. And typically we get some pretty significant solar flares and solar storms as a result of that. And so we have this high northern hemisphere coronal hole. This southern hemisphere one just opened up. We didn't have that yesterday in the live stream, or if you watched the video I made, we didn't have that. Now we got 2 of them on each side, 3848 right there. 3849 is the sunspot group really to watch. And then I think it's 3850 there just now appearing on the eastern limb. Welcome to the Soul Tribe, Dolly. God bless. Hope you're all doing well. And so just in general, I'm showing you this because it's very likely that we have another round of intense solar activity over the next 7, 8, 9 days because we are just now entering into this Earth direct zone. Let's look at our intensitygram so we can really see that. I have it right here. Let me just refresh it for you so we can get the latest one. And I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay. I'm reporting from Pacific, San Diego, but I'm talking about universal time in all of this. That's so anyone can do the calculations. So here we have our latest intensitygram. We see 3842, our culprit there of that 2.1 long duration X classifier, that super fast coronal mass ejection. We see that rotating out. Here are the other sunspot groups rotating in. So we can punch in on them. This is just really one big core, some other small ones there. So it's significant, but typically when you see just one big core, it's not like the most active sunspot I find. It seems to generally be stable because you want a lot of cores clustered together. That's what we have here. Look at this kind of like triangle formation that we have 1, 2, 3, then a whole bunch of smaller ones mixed in between. And so that looks kind of, ooh, it's starting to rotate into this bullseye strike zone. And then we have this other group there that is just now appearing on the eastern limb, and it did not show up on the helioseismic. And so it all just kind of popped out of nowhere, right? Because typically if that had been there on the far side, we would have seen it with the helioseismic. Well, lo and behold, check that guy out. Not too shabby, right? That's pretty significant. And they get kind of squished and compressed in the picture when they are on that far limb. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if this one here looks similar to 3849 there. Now, an interesting thing, if you hadn't watched this closely, you wouldn't know, is that there was a tiny little sunspot that was far, like down here in the far southern hemisphere at the high latitudes, and it kind of evaporated, actually went away, while all these ones are strengthening, and while these guys continue to strengthen. And so that really tells you a lot about the solar cycle. The part of the solar cycle that we're in right now is solar cycle maximum, because during solar cycle, you have this magnetic flux start at the poles, and then it goes like this and moves towards the equator until there's a termination event. And so right now, these are the main sunspot bands right there. Once they get there, then that's a termination event, and then we'll have new polarities emerge at the poles. It's called a race to the poles. And so we had this little sunspot down there. It faded out, showing that solar flux in that like far kind of high latitude part of the southern hemisphere wasn't really that significant anymore, while all of a sudden these strengthen. So we are very much in maximum, and it's strengthening right now. We're probably at or pretty close to that climax moment. The solar maximum is going to go all the way through 2025 into 2026, and will start descending down 2026, 2027. And so right now we're at like sunspots above 200 roughly, which is way higher than predictions. The max sunspot number reached for 24 was like 140, and that was just like a couple odd times. But once we start to really like dip below 100 sunspots, then we can kind of be like, okay, we're starting to enter into that descending phase. And it's during the descending phase that you start to get more earthquakes to pop off, because the Earth seems to respond that she takes in energy, and as she's being loaded and loaded and loaded with energy, she just kind of accumulates it. And then when you have that energy taken off, she then pushes it out and responds in kind with earthquakes, because all the solar energy, a lot of it gets ultimately loaded into the lithosphere, the crust, into the deeper parts of our planet. Earthquakes are electromagnetic, and they just blast it right back out. And so we've been having a lot of earthquakes already, and we're likely to see a lot more in 2028, 2029, 2030, during solar minimum, 2032, things like that. So we can look at our magnetogram. We have that pulled up here as well. We'll punch in on this sunspot that I'm looking at closely. Not concerned about, I'm never really concerned about the sun. If we get some super flare like kill shot, I will let you know, don't worry. But I find this stuff fascinating. I find it exciting, and how this energy influences our consciousness evolution journey, our bioelectricity. Find all that very, very fascinating. That will be tomorrow's video, an entire lecture on how solar activity like influences our bioelectricity and our health and our wellness, and what you can do to stay healthy during these high energy flux events. I recorded that whole lecture today. Here we have this sunspot group, quite a lot of cores, a lot of mixing. Here, this is all the negative polarities there in red and orange and yellow, positive and blue and green. And so it's not looking as kind of, mean, you could say, as the sunspot group that blasts off that 2.1 X-class flare, 3842. But I mean, we do see, like, for example, this like ring of like positive polarity around that negative polarity core. We have this positive polarity there. It's kind of an odd looking sunspot. And so it's been growing too. Very likely could be a big flare player as it rotates through Earth direct. First, we have this one, but this one could really, I think, be doing a lot over the next few days, specifically because we have that coronal hole here and that other one there. And so it's when the coronal holes are leading in front of a sunspot that we see that sunspot be really active. That's my observation over the past 18 months or so. So let's go back to our comet, because it's just, I mean, it's just so cool. And let's actually see if we can reload this, because we are waiting on data. And no, they still have not released the latest data, because what they do is they put a hold on the chronograph imagery that goes out to the public when they are creating space weather models. That is what I've discovered. And so this, you'll notice, is like a few hours out of date now, but still, what a treat this is to see with Comet Tsuchinshan appear there in our SOHO chronograph right as this 2.1 X-class flare blasts off, releasing this super high velocity coronal mass ejection. I have this set here to 10 frames per second, but look how fast it is. There's Mercury, a lot happening in our inner solar system. And so, some people recently have been saying that I've been, clickbaiting with my thumbnails. I try to be as truthful as possible with my thumbnails. I don't exaggerate for no reason. And so when things are crazy, I want to be accurate with that. Things are crazy right now, folks, and maybe it's just me, but it certainly is just me. But I mean, look at this. Look at how much is happening in our inner solar system at this moment in time. It is really, really crazy. And what would happen if this comet was to hit the sun? Well, that's kind of an unknown. We've seen that before with Jupiter. We may have seen that with the sun before. Could trigger some sort of explosion. But the size of these comets isn't that large in comparison to the sun. It really depends on the size of the comet. And if it was like hit a sunspot directly, that would be pretty crazy. That would be fun to watch, but maybe not actually fun to watch, but that would be cool. So yeah, just crazy, crazy, crazy stuff happening right now. Just want to see what else we got here. Again, I have to keep zooming in differently. Again, we are right now in this geomagnetic storm. It is strengthening again once more. If you remember my video last time, we have our phi angle here. It is 160, very close to 180. So nearly that optimal configuration for very powerful geomagnetic storming. There is a 1 hour delay with what you see here. And so what we are in right now, this 16 nanotesla zone and negative 13 for the southward component, is about in 30 minutes or so going to be showing up with our KP index. This is very likely to go to G2, could even go to G3. We've already been seeing some values close to that. You look at 6.33 right there. We had a HB60 value of 7 for 1 hour. So we have had some minor G3 storming. And yeah, things are crazy. So if you have any questions, please ask them. Now you can do @Stefan Burns and keep them on topic, please, for space weather. Appreciate that. Hope you're all doing well. I know it's been wild. A lot of people have been feeling this very strongly, because not only do we have what's happening with our sun, with this comet, with Mercury, all the things, the annular solar eclipse, that was a whole sequence. Mercury Cazimi on September 30th, 7.1 X-class flare on October 1st, annular solar eclipse packed with synchronicity on the 2nd, 9.0 X-class flare on October 3rd. Now this 2.1 X-class flare as the comet appears on the 7th. We also have other astronomical events right now occurring. We have Jupiter stationing retrograde on the 9th. We have Pluto stationing direct on the 12th. We have a first quarter waxing moon on the 10th. And when the moon is waxing, this is causing an increase in energies in our sphere on Earth. And so there's just a lot. Now, there have been a lot of people talking about Betelgeuse. This is a big red giant that we have, in our relatively nearby in interstellar space. A lot of people have been hyping up saying Betelgeuse is about to explode. The amount of videos I've seen that have said Betelgeuse is exploding right now and it didn't explode is crazy. And you can't predict that. You can measure the change in the light coming off of Betelgeuse, but that is such a long duration event on our human time scale. It'd be 1 in a trillion or something for that to actually occur like as we're watching Betelgeuse. And so it's at this stage where, who knows, it could supernova. That's the whole idea. Red giant goes supernova, but it could literally also be a million years from now. So don't get excited about Betelgeuse. You should be getting more excited about TCRB, which is the white dwarf that goes nova every 80-something years or so. Last time was in 1946. And so it is right at its reoccurrence interval this year and into 2025. And so we could see TCRB go nova in our sky, but that's not as significant as a massive supernova. If Betelgeuse goes supernova, it would be absolutely bonkers because it would be so bright in our sky because, it is so close. Do you know of any instances when sun's polarities reverse more than once in a single solar cycle? No, I don't know of that. I mean, we do see kind of these anomalous periods like the Maunder minimum and like the Dalton minimum. And, the sun, the flip of the magnetic field of the sun isn't always perfect, you could say, like, just absolutely like clockwork. But I'm not aware of any, like, for example, aborted reversals. Like the Earth can do that. Earth can have a geomagnetic excursion and it's like set up to do a reversal. It's at the right location, but then it'll abort and then go back to its polarity that it had. We've been tracking this for a very short period of time with our sunspots and solar flux and all those things. Now we can actually measure the magnetic poles and such. So it's possible, but I don't recall that ever being observed in our record, or else that would definitely stand out in my memory. How deep into the sun do these sunspots go? How are these sunspots fed? So we have just in general like electromagnetic flux pushing out of the sun. And I want to preface that there is a lot of uncertainty as to what the sun is. Like, is it just a giant ball of plasma? There's some people that think it's condensed matter, like special crystalline states of matter that get condensed down and that you just have this veneer of like plasma on top of it. We really don't know. We don't know because like, how do you go into the sun? Just like we really don't know what's happening in the Earth. We have seismic measurements, sure, and that informs us a lot. And then we have all the different geologic measurements that we've taken and observations, mineral assessments and things of this nature. But there's something to be said about actually going somewhere and like looking at something or sampling it. And so that's what it is like with the moon, right? Until we're actually on the moon, like with permanent bases, then we can really study the structure and shape of the moon to a much greater degree than we have already. Same with the sun. We have good ideas as to what the sun is, and we see the effects of these like solar flares and coronal mass ejection impacts as it relates to particle density here in our near-Earth system and what happens to our magnetic field. And we see all these different effects, but we really don't know what it is. We have good imagery across different wavelengths of light. There's a lot of uncertainty. So how deep do these sunspots go? I think there's probably resources out there for you. I'm not a complete expert. Thank you for the super thanks. But it depends on the amount of energy being pushed out. It could be maybe just like a surface feature where you have the convective cells inside the sun, then all of a sudden creating the sunspot that pushes out. Maybe it's from deeper channels. It's hard to say. I would not be surprised if the sun has an arrangement similar to Earth where it kind of has like a crust and then the mantle and then like, more of a core where there's this natural differentiation that occurs. Who knows? Thank you for the super thanks, observer. And if you have any more questions, you can ask them. Happy to answer any questions right now. Hope you're all feeling well. Just crazy energies at this moment in time. That is absolutely for sure. Could any of this be influencing the hurricanes? Yeah, I discussed that a little bit earlier. We can actually go to that. If I go to my bookmarks, I just put this one in. So good question. Let's look at our hurricanes. Boom, boom, boom. And yeah, full disk. Yeah, here we go. Well, I'm not sure I want full disk. Thank you, Sharon. Appreciate that. It's really nice. I guess we can punch in right here. Oh yeah, look at that. Here is our slider, 24-hour slider. So thank you all just for being here, right, in the first place. Really amazing. The channel's been growing really fast. Recently, we just passed 111, and so this really feels like a new beginning. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot to learn about our sun and space and our planet and energy and planetary resonances and so much more. So if you'd like to just join in, then you can subscribe and be part of the Soul Tribe and ride this wave together. We are riding up on this wave. You know, this is not something, I am doing my best to present this so it's not something that is meant to push you down and to keep you in fear, but something that's meant to, you know, enliven you and to lift your energies and decrease your positivity, but to also not be afraid to look at what the truth is and to explore dark corners so we can become more enlightened and strengthened, things of this nature. Thank you, Lucia, for the super thanks. Where can you see the comment? So let me go back. You had a comment there. You had a comment on the comment. Where can you see the comment? And can you see it with the naked eye? So right now you can't see it because it's too close to the sun. That's why it's showing up on our Soho coronagraph. But in about 3, 4, 5 days, it'll appear in the evening sky. So the sun will go down and then you'll be able to see it as long as you have clear skies. And it's been getting really bright just in the past couple of days or so. And so you should be able to see it with the naked eye. I mean, there's been photos now that people have taken and they've said, yeah, I saw it with the naked eye, even though it was like really close to the sun and in quite a bit of twilight. And so it's really starting to brighten quite significantly. And so, yeah, about October 10th, more like October 12th probably, is when that's really going to appear in the evening sky after the sun goes down. Here we have our hurricanes, or just in general, or look at the continental U.S. Here's Hurricane Milton. I just want to speak on this one more time. Again, if you're going to ask a question, do @Stefan Burns, or else it's just a whole list of comments I see. So I hope you're having fun in the chat. But maybe I discussed this already. Maybe I discussed it in the live stream that I didn't actually hit live on. I apologize for that. But what we have during geomagnetic storms, you know, we have the solar storm impact the Earth. The ionosphere of our planet, the uppermost part of the atmosphere, going from 50 to 100 to 1,000 kilometers up, that gets supercharged with energy and forms these really powerful electric currents. Down on the surface, you have our troposphere. You have the weather systems there. Something like a hurricane, like Hurricane Milton here, which we can see its progression over 24 hours just like that, that is also a very powerful electromagnetic field and potential, and all these crazy things are happening, right? That's what's driving the whole weather system. And so you have the ionosphere, you have, let's say, a very powerful weather system like a hurricane. They have really strong charges to them. When there is this increase in the ionospheric charge, now you can create this conductive channel between them and feed that energy into the weather system, perhaps strengthening it. And so that is kind of like physics in terms of capacitance and the flow of energy, being able to leap across. And we already know that these strong weather systems bleed their energy up into the ionosphere and create these channels. But what isn't as well studied is how much a geomagnetic storm can influence weather systems. But if you look at this just from an observational standpoint, you notice that these weather systems tend to get stronger as we have big geomagnetic storms. And so this is definitely one to watch. I think they expect it to be Hurricane 3 when it hits Florida, but it could very well be, or Category 3, it could very well be Category 4. Who knows? I have some questions up here. Make sure I don't miss them. Any word on the probe that they sent into your anus? Okay. Can this impact volcanic activity? Yeah, same idea, because volcanoes are really one of the premier sources of electromagnetic charge on the surface of our planet. We really saw that nicely demonstrated with the Hunga Tonga explosion in 2022, which was a massive electrical impulse. We had it registered in the Schumann resonances, which, you know, is effectively measuring the global electric circuit way out in Hungary. A fantastic research paper out of that geophysical lab back in just recently, actually, but on that event. They measured this massive spike in the electromagnetic field. I presented on that before on this channel. And so that was an underwater volcanic eruption, right? how much more powerful that could have been if we had that similar VEI classification on land. So these are really big electromagnetic impulses on one scale. There's also all the kind of more physical aspects to it of like, you know, the magma and lava and all this stuff, the shock wave, the compression, the pressure. But yeah, that is also something that's electromagnetic in nature. So when you have a strengthening of the global electric circuit, then it stands to reason that that could perhaps influence volcanic activity. And we saw that with a geomagnetic storm like a month or two ago, where it was in perfect arrangement for where these currents of energy flow in to the planet right at the dusk-dawn boundary. We had a big earthquake off the peninsula of Kamchatka that coincided with also a volcanic eruption. So it was perfect timing. You can't make this stuff up. We have another super thanks. Thank you, Patty. Bless you. Will this flare have an effect on the Saints versus Chiefs game? Well, I have no idea. Whoever's going to be connecting the soul the strongest maybe is the winner there. It's already category 5. Okay, yeah. So this is already like an absolute like crazy storm. I'm not an expert on this, but I do know the global electric circuit pretty well. And so with this geomagnetic storm that we are in right now, strengthening to an even greater degree, like we can go back to our 10-day here. That is something definitely to watch. I mean, again, look at this. This was you know, definitely not something to underestimate, because it had these waves coming in, but it's been getting stronger and stronger, super long duration. The Northern Lights auroras have been spectacular here in the UK. Yeah, I mean, right now is the time to go out for aurora if you are on the East Coast. If it's nighttime, I guess it's still nighttime in the United Kingdom or Europe. Yeah, great aurora viewing possibility. Actually, good point. Let us go to our aurora plot, see what our real-time aurora conditions are. And so we have, and that is located here, our aurora 30-minute forecast. Here we are. This is for the Northern Hemisphere. Go full screen, zoom out. Here's our aurora forecast. I'm going to scroll down in the chat. Thank you all for the super chats. Wow, Soul Lounger, $50. Thank you so much. God bless. I've been wearing the Wild and Free grounding shoes, and they are perfect. Yes, if you want help with all of this, because you're noticing a big increase in this energy flux, and it's just dysregulating your health and your wellness, causing a lot of symptoms, then earthing and grounding is the best thing to do. And the best way to do that is walk around barefoot, you know, feet on grass, ideally even like wet grass, like, you know, fresh dew in the morning. Go swimming in the ocean is excellent. But if you want something that helps you grounding like 24/7 or like just out and about chores, going around the town, then I have earthing shoes. Here we have them right here. This is the men's. I have the women's in the other room. I'm not going to go grab them. But these have an all natural leather sole, completely flat, zero toe drop, copper plug at the K1 meridian. These are the ultimate earthing shoe. Almost all the earthing shoes on the market have rubber on the bottom, but your entire bottom of your foot is conductive, and so you need that entire sole to be conductive. This is, and Soul Lounger is loving them, so thank you so much. I have those on my website, wildfreeorganic.com/store, men's and women's, new models coming out in about 2 months. Hope that helps. We have some more questions here. Will Jacksonville cancel flights? I don't know. How should I explain this to my mom who doesn't know a lot about solar activity? You can just tell her sun went boom and now Earth goes ouch, right? Keep it very simple. But we have a lot of this energy coming in. It interacts with our atmosphere, causes the aurora, right? You know, causes a lot of light to be emitted at different colors. But in general, it's just a charging event for the Earth. But really, if you want to keep it simple, sun went boom, Earth go ouch. What do you think of the micronova event in the 2040s and the geomagnetic excursion that will cause massive tidal waves? That is all conjecture and a fantasy, because who can say anything definitively? It's just, you know, if you repeat something often enough, people start to believe it. So why do you think there's going to be a micronova? Who said there's going to do that, right? Is God determining this? Does someone have a direct phone line to God? Okay, I rest my case. So yes, that is the aurora for the Northern Hemisphere. Here we have our Southern Hemisphere. Yeah, and so we see some aurora too from the Southern Hemisphere. This is our forecast, or really our nowcast. They call it the nowcast. But again, most of it's condensed and it's kind of around Antarctica here. but maybe we get a push up into New Zealand and Australia, maybe a little bit, you know, we'll see. We'll see if this continues to strengthen this storm. It is possible this most recent solar blast could blow the tail off the comet. It could. That's a good observation. That could happen. It'll reform though. Typically comets will reform their tail if that happens, but it could get blasted off. That dynamic often plays out too a little further away. But let's go back to our coronagraph so we can really look at the location of this. And I guess I'll punch it on this one here. We'll zoom in right there. I mean, the alignment on that is pretty nice, right? So that very well could strip the comet of its tail because it's sweeping in really close right now, and it's going to be appearing on the other side of the sun soon. It's going this way, right? The comet's going this way, and soon it's going to be appearing in the evening sky alongside Mercury and alongside Venus. And so it has to pass right through this coronal mass ejection there, right? Because that blasted off from that side. And so really interesting dynamics that play with this comet. We'll see what happens. Like, yeah, a lot of unknowns here. Some crazy stuff happening. So again, I don't exaggerate on my thumbnails or my titles. The moon is out tonight finally. That is good. We just came off of that new moon on October 2nd. Takes some time for it to become visible again. I'll make sure I give it a look. Last chance for comments, again, at Stefan Burns. Otherwise, we will wrap up this video. And make sure, if you haven't already, yeah, let's look at this one too though. Make sure if you haven't already that you click the notification bell for this channel, because I released, or I filmed the whole video today on high energy flux events like solar activity, solar flares, solar storms, how that affects our bioelectricity, and then how that influences our health and our wellness, because there are so many new subscribers who have been asking that question. So I've made videos like this before, but I decided to make it again and to make it better. And so I've done that. It's like an hour-long lecture. I was going to upload it today, like post it today, but it was taking an anomalously long time to process. And so Spirit said, go live, here I am, doing it for you. But if you want to watch that when it drops tomorrow, then make sure you click that notification bell, because sometimes these videos don't get pushed out to people. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Love you. Thanks for everything you do and share. You are so loved. You are also loved in the chat. Know that. And it's not just, me giving love to you or other people giving love, but it's like we are all manifestations of love. And so it sounds a little corny, but it is true. It's the most powerful force in the universe, because love can exist across space and across time. It's not bound by the dimensions that we live within. It is really something truly magnificent and incredible that we really don't understand that well. And so it's a special place that we live. We're having a lot of big energy right now coming into Earth, increasing all our feelings, increasing our mental activity, increasing physical sensations, right? Causing greater spiritual activations and awakenings. And so there is a lot that's at play. And yeah, I am aware of Michael Levin's work on bioelectricity. He's really incredible, carrying on this tradition of studying into morphogenetics after Robert Becker. And we also have, I wrote his name down here, Harold Saxon Burr. So a lot of people have been researching into bioelectricity for a long time. He's the latest in that with some amazing discoveries of his own. Yeah, so just, if you can support someone with some good energy, some positivity, that's a great thing. It's good to be aware of what is happening in the world, to make sure that we see everything very cleanly and truthfully, and, really see things for what it is. But even then, to harness our inner solar light and to radiate that out, I think is really wonderful and beautiful. Yeah, you're welcome. And I just want to close out with one nice Om, the sound of the universe, A-U-M, which is a sound that's made when you just naturally open your mouth and then close it, like Om. It just naturally happens. It's the sound of the universe, the master vibration that equalizes and connects everything together. So you can join me in this if you would like. And I recommend, if you're ever feeling like uncentered and ungrounded, to take some deep breaths and to do some chanting or some oming. It like awakens like the animal vital spirit. It's important that we connect with those primal energies at times, because in those primal energies, those animalistic energies, are some of our most powerful, strongest, creative, manifesting energies. So it's really important to engage with that in a very conscious, mindful way, because most people, you have to engage with it in one way or another, and a lot of people do it through addictive behaviors, or they're like a nympho or something like this, but you can engage with these animalistic behaviors very consciously through things like chanting or oming, yoga, things of that nature. So let us do it. Thank you, Brian, for the super thanks. Making you smarter. I'm glad for that. Love, light, positive energy. Yes, much love, love and light. Hope you're all doing well. I know you're all doing well. Thank you all for being here, and I'll see you all in the next video. Big video release tomorrow. I hope you all find that valuable. And again, you can go to wildfreeorganic.com/store. I have various products there that are meant to help you with this. I put my love and my energy into this because it's more than just talk. It's also about action. And so I wanted to do everything I could to help you with this transition process that we are in right now, as we have this massive amount of solar activity and this massive awakening process that is occurring on our planet at this moment in time. So, servant of God, here to help you. Thank you all so much again. Once more, love and light. Namaste. I'll see you all very, very soon.